Welcome everybody to this edition of Attention Talk Video. I'm your host, ADHD and attention coach, Jeff Copper. Our topic today is what I call a second tier variable, or the problem beneath all the problems. Before we get to the content, I want to make you aware of children and adults with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, better known as CHAD. They're a place where you can find evidence-based and evidence-informed information on ADHD. Just go to chadd.org. Okay, people are very appearance-based. We judge things based off of what we can see. That's a big challenge in the world of ADHD because a lot of what's driving the bus is your executive function or your cognitive thinking, which is really kind of invisible. I know myself, I do what I can to make it tangible. And there's a lot of videos that I've done, particularly around working memory, where I've tried to share things like how to tie a knot by reading the instructions, or I'll say some words and ask you to repeat it back to me in alphabetical order and talk to you about the process that's going on so you can kind of understand what that is and what the challenges are. So we actually have research that's been about 18 months old that Dr. Russell Barkley has released that suggests that people with ADHD live 8 to 20 years less than the general population. They measured 14 different variables, 5 of which you can't do anything about. One would be like intelligence. But of the 9 others that were left, like diet and substances and some other things, we have a tendency to look at, like if you're overweight, we look at food. Substances or addictive behavior, you looked at whatever those addictive behaviors is. Well, what Dr. Barkley found in the research of the 9 things that you could do something about, underneath all of them, the second tier, the problem beneath all the problems, was self-regulation. And that's the challenge of ADHD, is to pause and to override your urges, basically to self-regulate. And so a lot of times I see people on YouTube or even on the internet, and they're addressing a problem, but the problem under all the problems is basically self-regulation. So we know diet is really good. We know exercise is really good. We know meditation is really good. We know sleep is really good for you. The challenge with it is people's with ADHD, your ability to self-regulate. They actually say, put your phone down and go to bed on time. To actually stop and prepare a meal, as opposed to taking it out of a bag or ripping out of just a wrapper off of it. Which with exercise, it's a repetitive and boring task. The issue is to self-regulate, to actually kind of get up and go do that. Meditation, same thing. It's really boring. And so I'm really trying to bring this to your attention. A lot of people are like, what's the real issue? Well, the real issue at some point in time is your ability to self-regulate. As you're watching this, you're more challenged now to manage your ADHD, in my opinion, than others back 30, 40 years ago. The reason for that is society had a lot more obstacles between you and things to self-regulate. For example, I used to read a newspaper. There's no social media and there's no links next to that, so it made it easier for me to self-regulate. If you're reading off the internet, it's a little bit challenged because there's a plethora of stuff that you've got to block out. Back in the old days, I remember to get money, I actually had to go to the bank. A lot of times I wanted to buy something, but it was too much of a hassle to actually get to the bank, so I wasn't able to do that. The reason I really want to emphasize this is when it really comes down to it, the problem under the problems is self-regulation. And time and again, I'm having people want coaching, but they're tempting themselves left and right. And as long as those temptations are in the room, it's really difficult for them to adhere to whatever task is at hand. So self-regulation, is like an addiction. You have a hard time, alcoholics, their issue is not drinking, it's actually stopping. They know they shouldn't, but they do it. Same thing with crack or gambling, etc. The issue really is to understand that's the underlying problem and to manage many of those temptations. You've got to manage to make thinking a little bit easier, which is beyond the scope of this particular video. But anything that you're dealing with ADHD and you're struggling to realize that self-regulation is underneath of it. And if you're not dealing with that issue somehow, in some way, shape, or form, you're just dealing with it symptomatically. What I hope this does is give you to pause and some self-awareness to look around at all your temptations. Cell phones are a big one. I mean, a real big one, or video games, or there's more and more I'm finding people that are smoking marijuana just to escape the anxiety. But you have to manage that stuff. So figure out a way to abstain, and then often you can move forward. That's a lot. But the underlying variable, the problem under all the problems, is the ability for you to pause and inhibit your urge to get what you want in a moment. or just to get emotional, skip the thinking part. So I'll quit droning on. Please, I hope you found this interesting. Please subscribe to our channel if you are new, and comments, please. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this. The real challenge is self-regulation is underneath all of it. I hope this gives you some insight. Catch us next week for another great tip. Take care.